Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm going to tell you all about the books that I read in the second half of October. I only read 4, which is kind of sad, but I don't know. Mostly I'm just sad about that because I didn't finish the 3rd book in a series that I wanted to read the entire thing of this month. But that was the Wolfblade Trilogy, which consists of Wolfblade, Warrior, and Warlord. I read both of these 2 books this month, and they were so good. This is a prequel series to the Demon Child trilogy, and it follows, basically, the first book that follows the mother of one of the main characters from the Demon Child trilogy, and then the second one kind of goes on to actually encompass a whole slew of characters, and it's no longer really her as the main character, but, because it gets really into, like, a whole bunch of political intrigue and whatnot, and I feel like the first one, Wolfblade, was actually my favorite just because, I don't know, I feel like the conflict in it was a lot more interesting, and also because we're following just one person mostly, and all the weird stuff that happens to her, whereas the second one, where it's about so many people that it's a lot more to juggle, and we don't empathize with each person as much, at least I didn't. So what I really, really loved is the way that Jennifer Fallon creates such compelling villains, as usual. I mean, it's not quite on par with the Demon Child trilogy, but especially the second book in particular has a villain in it who really is he actually thinks that he's in the right, and because he convinces himself so much that he actually believes that something different happened or that something is not true, to the point where he's basically a crazy person. And it's such a good villain because he's actually kind of terrifying that way, just because A, he thinks he's in the right, and B, he's actually insane and can't be convinced otherwise. It's so insane. But one thing that I also felt was a weak point of this series is kind of the same one that the Demon Child trilogy had, in which a character is kind of assigned some personality traits that she doesn't actually exhibit in the books, and in this case it's a he. So in these books there's a character who basically is building himself out to be a, like, shallow, frivolous person, and so a lot of people, when it's from someone else's point of view, if we're following a chapter that's not from his point of view, it's from someone else's, then and they're like, oh, well, he always seemed like he was supposed to be a really shallow person, like this can't be him, or whatever it is, but we never actually see him do anything in the books that, or even say anything at all, that would make him seem like people would think he was a shallow person at all. But as usual, I just absolutely love the absolute crap out of everything that I've read by Jennifer Fallon. The first book that I actually read in the second half of October was The Glass Dragon, which is the first book in the Dragon Nimbus trilogy. And this is a bind-up of all 3, but I did not actually finish the entire bind-up. I only read the first book, and for good reason. Basically, this book is written just so dryly and generically, and I mean, a lot of times when I go into an adult fantasy that I haven't heard a whole lot about, I kind of expect some amount of cheese or some amount of genericness, but this was a bit more than what I was expecting. It was so generic to the point where the magic system was so all over the place and not clearly defined at all. The characters were all very, very generic as well. They barely had any personalities, and then also this had the biggest case of insta-love I've ever seen. Process of them developing feelings for each other isn't even there. It's literally like they're just in love, just automatically. And part of it is, I mean, I would have almost enjoyed this book so much more if it were like a trashy romance in a fantasy book or something like that, because the elements for a romance are there. Like, both of these characters really felt like they had every reason to not be able to stay together, that kind of thing, and that's a key element of a romance book. So it almost would have been really good if it was just about that. And there was also some really weird kind of misogynistic crap between the 2 main characters as well. Like, basically, this dude, he doesn't really seem like a douchebag or anything, because he doesn't even really have a personality, but he kind of, like, implies that the woman needs a man in order to, like, get over her past, basically. And I thought that seemed very, very weird. Like, there were just some very questionable quotes in here that, honestly, I'm kind of shocked that a woman wrote this. And last but not least, I read Spellbook for the Lost and Found by Moira Fowley Doyle. I listened to this on audiobook, and this basically is about these teenagers living in a creepy Irish small town. What happens is everyone is losing things. It could be a pair of socks. It could be something more than that. Like all kinds of stuff start getting lost all over town, and the things that are lost just get bigger and bigger, basically, and they have to find out how this is going on. So I really loved this book. I thought I was not going to like it very much from the first couple of chapters because it took a while to actually get to the plot, and also there are 3 point of view characters, and each of them start off with completely different friends and everything, like they don't know each other at all. So it was a lot to juggle, and there are a lot of characters in here, so before you really get to understand who they all are, it's a little bit difficult to get into the plot because you're like, who is this again? I'm so confused. And I think the fact that I was listening to it on audiobook didn't really help either. So I don't know. And also, I mean, there are 3 different narrators for the 3 different point of view characters in the audiobook, but they all sound really alike because they are all teenage girls. And I also called the twist from the very first, pretty much, so the fact that the characters took forever to arrive at it and then just so conveniently thought up what it was out of the blue, I kind of thought that was weird. But besides that, though, I really, really highly recommend this book if you're looking for, like, a creepy Halloween read. I mean, probably by the time this goes up, it will already be Halloween, but, like, anyway, Halloween or not, you should read this book. It's pretty dang good. So these 3 books plus the audiobook are the books that I read in the second half of October. If you've read any of these, let me know what your thoughts are, and let me know what your favorite book you read this month was, and I will see you next time with a new video. Bye!